Today we're out on location of the Musgrove Mill battlefield, which is a battle that took place in August of 1780. It wasn't too long after the Battle of Camden, and it was a much needed victory here at this location in order to spirit up the people of the backcountry. And this also took place not too long before the Battle of Kings Mountain. Musgrove Mill Battlefield Park is the site of a plantation home that was adjacent to the Enoree River where a grist mill once stood. The Enoree River was the site of a ford that allowed armies to cross back and forth across this river and allowed effective communication, which is the reason why the Tories, or the Loyalists, were looking to secure this area. The Patriot position, however, was across that river, right here in this clearing that you can see just in front of you on this 3D map. At this position, the Patriots would hold their ground for the Battle of Musgrove Mill. In the spring of 1780, the British captured Charleston, giving them near total control of South Carolina. In response, Patriot guerrilla forces intensified their attacks in the backcountry, where the war had become violent struggle between Patriots and Loyalists. On August 19, 1780, about 200 mounted Patriots moved toward Musgrove Mill, an important Loyalist outpost that controlled the local grain supply. The Patriot force was made up of South Carolinians under Colonel James Williams, Georgians led by Colonel Elijah Clark, and frontiersmen known as the Overmountain Men, commanded by Colonel Isaac Shelby. The Patriots' approach was discovered after a brief skirmish with a Loyalist patrol, during which 2 Patriots were wounded. Soon after, a local farmer warned them that the Tory garrison was much larger than expected, around 500 men. Despite being outnumbered and losing the element of surprise, the Patriots prepared an ambush on a ridge overlooking the road to the mill. Captain Shadrach Inman led a small detachment across the Enoree River to provoke the Loyalists, then retreated toward the main line. The Loyalists under Colonel Alexander Ennis pursued him. When he advanced to within close range, the Patriots unleashed a deadly volley. The Loyalists responded with a bayonet charge against the Patriot right flank, briefly forcing Shelby's men to fall back. Colonel Clark then attacked the Loyalist flank, and during the fighting, Colonel Ennis was wounded and fell from his horse. With their commander down, Loyalist resistance collapsed, and the retreat quickly turned into a rout. Although the battle lasted only about an hour, Loyalist casualties were heavy, while Patriot losses were light. News of the Patriot defeat at Camden soon forced the victors to disperse, but Musgrove Mill proved that British control of the South was far from secure. So as early as August 8th of that year, Musgrove's property here becomes a place where wounded soldiers are being sent by the British. It is a very valuable piece of land, really. There's a mill here. It can provide food. There's a home that can provide shelter and a hospital if needed. There is water running out front here and a ford that goes across the Enoree River, and it is a great place for communication for these soldiers out here on these fields. So it is identified by the British forces as a place that they need to maintain. Now, the owner here, on the other hand, was a neutral person. In the American Civil War, they would have called him a copperhead, someone that didn't want to get involved on either side of this fight. But the British forces, however, seized his land, seized his property, and made camp all around it. And whether he liked it or not, he was involved. Walking up on this trail, I see a lot of things like this here behind me. This chopped down tree that's fallen over. And there's a sign immediately when you walk into the British encampment side of Musgrove Mill that talks about recent weather and fallen trees. I'm thinking that that was from the hurricane that rolled through this area and destroyed so much of the area in North Carolina. But there's been a lot of fallen trees out here. So if you come out here, you have to be careful, watch out, because you never know when the canopy is going to start coming down. Now, when you visit these state sites, these state parks, you end up running into some things that you don't really normally run into and learn some stuff that you haven't read about. Now, at this location, I'm standing directly in front of the Mary Musgrove Monument. And according to the sign out here, her person is basically what was the character in a book at the time. And it was supposed to be a spy for the Patriot soldiers. It was rumored in legend out here for a long time Mary Musgrove was a spy for the Patriots, but there's no real solid evidence on that, and we really don't know what role Mary Musgrove actually played in the American Revolution. But a statue like this at the base of where your home used to be, which was right up top there, right up there, just on the front side of where this visitor center is, that's pretty cool. A tribute to the women of the American Revolution. In May of that year, after capturing Charlestown, the British sent Loyalist militia out to capture these strategic locations like the one we have here in front of us. And there would have been a ford out here for people to cross back and forth. These were very strategic to troop movement and communication. Because this was captured by the Loyalist militia, it turns out to set up the actual battle that ends up here at this location at Musgrove Mill. Without this ford, not a lot takes place. The British were actually camped out on this side over here. That whole property would have had tents from the Loyalist militia, the British soldiers that were throughout this area here at Musgrove Mill. There's pretty unique features out here. This field, it goes from a nice grassy hill to a great place to camp to all of a sudden you're in this swampy bottom here right before it gets to the river. And the river runs along. Flip around so you can see right down here along this entire trail on the bottom portion where the British were camped out here at Musgrove Mill. And hopefully you can make out the sounds of the river and everything in the background rushing around. It's pretty neat to hear that. Something else. These backcountry South Carolina lowland locations like this, they have real neat features. They also have things that are very dangerous about them. But it's pretty safe out here on these trails in South Carolina. The location I'm at now, I can assume is probably part of where the grist mill was. You can see how it's at a natural point where the water comes in slow and then it starts to head downhill and create that power that's needed for this grist mill. So it's pretty neat to see this out here in the sticks of South Carolina. Well, you can't get much closer than this. We're down here on some rocks, just out in front of where the grist mill, or the location all these modern stones are, on the river here as it crosses over. And you can see the river drifts off back in that direction. We came from that direction as part of the British camp, the encampment. And I'm assuming that the battlefield itself probably lies over the river somewhere on this side. But we're going to head out that way here pretty soon and see what we can find as part of this South Carolina State Park system here. I'm out here at that Musgrove Mill battlefield on the opposite side of the river itself, the Enoree River. And where else can you go to find waterfalls near a battlefield and stuff like that? I mean, I'm sure maybe far in the north there's a couple places, but here in the backcountry area of South Carolina and North Carolina, there's beautiful things like this to check out all the time. This is the place where all these patriots grew up and lived their lives, you know. These simple people that all they wanted to do was be free, have their farms, take care of their families. That's what they were fighting for here during the American Revolution. They were fighting for each other. Now, I'm not really concerned about what Ken Burns has to say in his documentary. I do like his documentaries, but I do believe in the reasons why some of my ancestors fought in the American Revolution and the reasons why they forged ahead and fought in many of the other wars. They fought for this country and for the people that are living in it right now to be here today, to be called Americans, to be free people in this country. Yes, we did have an American Civil War. We also had a Civil War during the Revolution. But I'm filled with pride when I walk out to battlefields like this one here and I talk about those people that mattered, the ones that made the history, not the ones behind the camera. I've been to a lot of battlefields. This is not one of them. It's my first time out here, so I'm not real sure what all's in this trail or the exact locations of where the fight took place. But I'll do my research before I put this video together and try to spring together some sort of a, I guess, battle map. And that way I can make sense of the locations of where we're at. So finally, on the other side of the river here at the battlefield trail itself, and you'll start to see some of these signs just up on top of the hill from where the waterfall is. And this talks about the fighting force that remained in South Carolina to oppose the British, which were basically militiamen, volunteers that were organized as armies out in these areas. And roughly 200 of them were here fighting against the far superior force on the other side there. And they were able to create a victory here, basically using guerrilla warfare, hit and run tactics, hiding behind trees and firing. Kind of like what you would have seen in the movie The Patriot, when Mel Gibson's men are off in these woods out here, him and his sons or whatever, and they're stationed behind trees and they're firing pop shots one at a time at these armies and confusing and scattering them. So it's pretty cool being in a place like this in South Carolina. On the sign out here that I'm looking at, it talks about the Americans in British uniform. They're called provincial soldiers. So in other words, they are regulars that are trained by the British, supplied by the British, and they are far superior in their training than what these militiamen are out here. And it says that there's at least 3 different units that fought at the Battle of Musgrove Mill, and they included South Carolina Royalists, 3rd Battalion of New Jersey Volunteers, and the 1st Battalion, Delancey's Brigade of the New York Royalists. All had been involved in actions in the Southern Campaign prior to Musgrove's Mill. So you can imagine possibly some of them may be involved in the movements prior to or even during the Battle of Camden. And among the provincial soldiers at Musgrove's Mill was Captain Abraham de Peyster. You're going to hear about him here pretty soon when we go over to talk about the Battle of Kings Mountain. Well, I can't say enough good things about the Musgrove Mill battlefield trail and all the different signs that they have out here talking about these soldiers that fought in this location. Compared to some of your Civil War battlefields, this is vastly different. It is a small battle comparatively, smaller pieces of land. The trail on the other side is roughly 1 mile loop trail around Musgrove Mill. This trail that I just did here is 1.7 miles. Loops all the way around, goes down to a nice waterfall at the foot of the trail itself. And it really is just a beautiful place to get out and hike. Even during the winter time when the leaves are all gone, this is a beautiful place. A little treacherous in some areas because of the fallen trees, but not too bad. The men that fought out here, they fought against Loyalist armies. This is what the king was counting on. The Brits were counting on subjects out here in this location being loyal to the crown. If you don't have the people who are loyal to the crown, you can't fill the ranks from all the way across the sea. It's way more expensive to send soldiers over here, and there were other conflicts at the time that Britain was involved in where they were using their own soldiers. That's how the 200 men who were loyalists end up over there in Musgrove Mill. That's also how you end up having these militias built up out here fighting against these loyalists. They're not fighting British soldiers. They're fighting their neighbors. So, if there's one thing that Ken Burns' documentary hits spot on, it's the fact that this American Revolution isn't just a revolution. It's an American Civil War. Except we weren't United States of America at the time. So, take it for what it's worth. Well, I can't say enough good things about this place, and I really hope you enjoy the video that we've taken out here, walking around these fields, and hopefully we can put together a good enough flick for you to see here at Musgrove Mills Battlefield. Remember, this is a prelude to Kings Mountain. We're going to talk about this guy whenever we get over to Kings Mountain, and we're going to talk about JD from History Underground and have him tell us about his ancestor that actually fought at the Battle of Kings Mountain. Well, we'll see you out there on those battlefields. Until next time, this is History with Waffles.